She was standing in the rain, cold, hungry, and begging for food with her little baby in her arms. No one stopped. No one cared. Until a quiet billionaire saw her. What he did next left everyone speechless, even her. This powerful story will move your heart and remind you that one act of kindness can change a life forever. Watch till the end, the twist will leave you in tears. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Emma stood by the side of the road, soaked to the bone. Her once white wrapper was now stained with mud, clinging to her shivering frame. Rainwater dripped from her short braids onto the tiny bundle in her arms, her 6-month-old daughter, Elikim, wrapped tightly in a thin blanket that had already lost the battle against the storm. She had been standing there for hours. Her lips trembled not just from the cold, but from hunger. She hadn't eaten since the previous morning, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd had a full meal. Elikim's weak cries pierced through the thunder rolling in the distance. Passers-by walked quickly, avoiding her eyes. Some turned away. Others simply looked through her like she was invisible, a blemish in their perfect day. Emma's voice was hoarse as she tried again. "Please, anything. Just food for my baby. Please." A woman in heels scoffed and kept walking. A man in a suit crossed to the other side. A trotro splashed water near her feet. No one stopped. Her eyes welled with tears, and she pulled Elikim closer to her chest, whispering lullabies she barely remembered from childhood. "Shush, shush. I'm here. I'm trying, my baby, I'm trying." She didn't know how much longer she could take it. She had come to the city looking for a better life, escaping an abusive marriage and broken promises. But Accra had been cruel, unkind to those with nothing, indifferent to a mother's pain. She was invisible. Useless. Hopeless. And then, a car stopped. It wasn't just any car. A sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom, polished even under the rain, eased to a stop just a few feet away. The tinted window rolled down slowly. Emma turned her face away, ashamed, afraid she might be told to leave, or worse, harassed like before. But the door opened. A tall man stepped out, holding an umbrella. He was dressed in a gray designer suit, unbothered by the puddles beneath him. His face was unreadable, not angry, not amused, just quiet. Thoughtful. His eyes, dark and deep, locked onto hers. Nathaniel Mensah. Billionaire entrepreneur. Widely known, yet rarely seen. The kind of man who lived above headlines, always behind closed doors. Emma blinked in disbelief. Why was he coming toward her? Nathaniel knelt slightly, looking at the baby in her arms, then back at her. "You're shivering," he said, his voice calm. "Your baby's cold." Emma clutched Elikim tighter. "Please? I didn't steal anything. I'm just trying to survive." He didn't flinch. Instead, he did something no one else had done. He extended the umbrella over her head. "Come with me," he said. "There's a hospital nearby. You both need help." Emma froze. "Why?" Nathaniel looked at her with eyes that seemed to carry their own story. "Because no one else has. And because I can." She hesitated, afraid, confused, unsure if this was a trick, or another cruel joke from life. But something inside her shifted. She took his hand. As he led her gently into the warmth of the waiting car, onlookers stared, dumbfounded. The billionaire and the beggar. The rich and the forgotten. The rain continued to fall, but for the first time in a long while, Emma felt something warm rising in her chest. Hope. Emma sat stiffly in the plush leather seat, her soaked wrapper now wrapped tightly around Elikim's frail body. She barely breathed, unsure if she was dreaming. The warmth inside the luxury vehicle was foreign, too clean, too quiet. The man beside her hadn't said a word since they got in. He stared straight ahead, one hand loosely gripping the armrest, the other occasionally checking his phone. Her eyes darted around. The digital dashboard. The soft hum of jazz on the stereo. The scent of leather and cologne. It felt like another planet. Where are we going?" she finally asked, her voice low and unsure. Nathaniel didn't look at her. "Rich private hospital. 10 minutes away." She hugged her baby tighter. "I can't pay. I don't have anything." He glanced at her then, not with pity, but something quieter. "I know." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "Why are you helping me?" A long pause. I don't know, he said. Maybe because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. Emma didn't know how to respond. So she said nothing. The car pulled into a gated hospital compound moments later. Security men, dressed in white, rushed forward, until they recognized the license plate. Nathaniel's driver nodded, and the gates parted. Inside, a team of nurses stood ready at the entrance, as if this was already arranged. Emma's heart thudded. Please, don't take my baby from me. Please, sir. Nathaniel turned to her gently. No one is taking anything from you. She'll stay with you. I just want her looked at. And you too. As the car door opened, warm air and bright lights spilled in. Two nurses approached with a wheelchair and a blanket. Emma panicked. No, I can walk. She began, but her knees gave out slightly. One of the nurses caught her gently. It's okay, madam. You're safe now. Emma didn't know if she believed her, but she let them help her inside. Doctors ran quiet tests. Elikim was placed in an incubated crib nearby. She was dehydrated, underweight, but stable. Emma watched nervously from the hospital bed, eyes never leaving her baby. Nathaniel stood in the corner, speaking quietly with the pediatrician. He nodded at something the doctor said, then slipped his phone back into his pocket. The doctor approached her. Madam, the baby is malnourished, but we'll stabilize her. It's a good thing you brought her when you did. Emma looked down, tears filling her eyes. I didn't bring her. He did. The doctor smiled slightly. Then you both owe him a lot. Later that evening, after the tests and the feeding tubes were in place, Nathaniel returned to Emma's room. She was now in a hospital gown, clean, sitting up, holding a warm cup of porridge that a nurse had brought her. I don't even know your name, she said. Nathaniel, he replied simply. Nathaniel Mensah. Her spoon paused halfway to her mouth. The billionaire. He nodded. Emma's heart thudded. She stared at him. Why would someone like you even notice someone like me? Nathaniel looked down at his hands. Sometimes the people we ignore are the ones we need to see most. Then, to her shock, he asked, Do you have anywhere to go after this? She swallowed hard. No. I sleep in a bus stop near Adabraka. I had a friend once, but she moved. I don't have anyone else. Nathaniel nodded, as if he expected that. Then come stay at my home, he said. The spoon dropped from her fingers and clattered into the bowl. What? You and your daughter. I have space. A guest wing. You'll be safe. Emma's mind reeled. I can't. I don't know you. You don't know me. I know enough, he said softly. You're a mother who didn't give up. That's more than most. She stared at him, breath caught in her throat. No one had ever offered her a warm meal, let alone a mansion. Why me? She asked again, searching his face for a trap. Nathaniel stood slowly. That's something I'm still figuring out. And with that, he turned and left the room, leaving Emma stunned, overwhelmed, and wondering if this strange twist of fate was a blessing, or the beginning of something far more complicated. It was nearly midnight when Emma stepped into Nathaniel's mansion for the first time. The rain had stopped, but her heart still thundered with her knees. The car had driven through winding private roads, past hedges trimmed like royalty, and into a grand courtyard where motion sensor lights lit up their arrival. The building was enormous, stone walls, tall glass windows, and balconies that overlooked a lush, moonlit garden. Emma held Elikim close as a quiet housekeeper in uniform opened the door and bowed slightly. No words were exchanged. No questions asked. Nathaniel led her through a hallway that seemed to stretch forever, marble floors gleaming beneath their feet, chandeliers above them casting soft golden glows on polished art and expensive furniture. Emma felt like she had entered a dream, or a trap. But the guest wing was nothing short of paradise. A warm, cozy room with cream walls, floral curtains, and a crib already waiting. Fresh diapers, baby clothes, a rocking chair by the window. Someone had prepared all this. Recently. As if he'd been expecting a mother and child. Nathaniel didn't explain. He just stood at the door and said quietly, You'll be safe here. Rest. We'll talk tomorrow. Then he left. Emma barely slept. Not because the bed wasn't soft, it was the softest she'd ever touched. Not because the food they left for her wasn't delicious, it was. But because something didn't add up. Why had a man like that been driving through the rain alone? Why had a billionaire shown such care, not just in offering shelter, but in preparing for her and her baby like he knew they were coming? The next morning, Emma wandered the house cautiously, baby in her arms. The staff nodded politely but didn't speak unless spoken to. Most avoided eye contact. Everything was so orderly, so controlled. Then she saw the staircase. At the top was a hallway she hadn't noticed the night before. It looked darker, quieter. Forbidden. She climbed it slowly, heart pounding with each creak. Doors lined the hallway. All closed. Except one. It was slightly ajar. She pushed it gently. The room smelled of sandalwood and something faintly floral. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains. On one side, shelves lined with books and framed awards. On the other, a wall covered in photographs. Emma stepped closer. Her breath caught. There were pictures of a woman. Elegant. Beautiful. With eyes that looked almost familiar. In one, she was smiling by a fountain. In another, she was holding a baby. Then there was a family photo, Nathaniel, the woman, and a child no older than 1. But the woman wasn't her. Yet something about her face stirred a strange discomfort. Not identical to Emma, but similar. Hair. Skin tone. Jawline. There was a resemblance, enough to unsettle. Then she noticed something else. An envelope taped behind one of the frames. The edge stuck out just enough for her to spot it. Curiosity won. She reached for it. Before she could pull it out, a voice. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Emma spun around. Nathaniel stood at the doorway. Calm. Expressionless. But his eyes were sharper now. I was just, she stammered, placing a protective hand over Elikim. He walked in slowly and looked at the wall. "She was my wife," he said. Emma's heart sank. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. She died 2 years ago. Her name was Clara. Complications after childbirth." Emma swallowed hard. "The baby?" "Also gone." The room went silent. Nathaniel looked at her now with eyes that didn't hide their pain. "You reminded me of her. That's why I stopped that day. You looked like someone I thought I'd never see again." Emma felt her knees weaken slightly. "But I'm not her." "I know," he said. "But, there's something I haven't told you." She tensed. "What is it?" He didn't answer. Not yet. Just looked at Elikim, the baby girl nestled peacefully in her arms. "I'll tell you. In time," he said quietly. Then he turned and walked out. Leaving Emma shaken, confused, and now sure of one thing. She wasn't here by accident. It was past midnight when Emma woke up with a start. Elikim stirred gently beside her in the crib, but it wasn't the baby that roused her, it was a muffled sound. Voices. Somewhere in the house. Tense. Urgent. Not the calm, measured tone Nathaniel always used, but louder. Sharper. Emma sat up in bed, listening. She slipped her feet into soft slippers and wrapped a shawl around herself. Her heart was pounding, but her curiosity pulled her stronger than fear. She stepped into the dim hallway of the guest wing, every creak of the wooden floor sounding like thunder under her feet. She followed the sound. Down the hall. Around the bend. Toward the east wing, where Nathaniel's private study was. A sliver of light spilled under a closed door. She moved closer, just enough to hear. She didn't mean to eavesdrop. But what she heard made her blood run cold. "Are you losing your mind?" a man's voice hissed. "You're letting her stay here? A total stranger?" Nathaniel's voice replied, low but steady. "She's not a stranger." "She's not Clara either, Nate," the man snapped. "Stop trying to replace your dead wife with a lookalike from the streets. This is dangerous." Emma clutched her chest. "Lookalike? Replace? I'm not replacing anyone," Nathaniel said after a long pause. "You think I don't know she's not Clara? You think I don't see the difference every time I look at her?" "Then what is this?" the voice demanded. "You bring her into your home. You act like she belongs here. You've got the staff treating her like some queen. What are you even planning?" Nathaniel didn't respond right away. Then, "I'm trying to do what I should have done 2 years ago. Before everything went wrong." The other man laughed bitterly. "You think this will make up for it? Bringing her here, does she even know?" "No," Nathaniel said. "Not yet." "Good, the man snapped. Because when she finds out, she'll hate you. Amma gasped softly, covering her mouth. The voices stopped. For a terrifying second, she thought they had heard her. But footsteps moved away from the door instead, and the light beneath it faded as it clicked shut. Amma backed away in silence. Her thoughts were spinning. Her breath, shaky. She returned to the guest room like a ghost. Elikim stirred slightly, sensing her mother's tension. Amma sat at the edge of the bed, staring into the dark. What did they mean, before everything went wrong? Why did they speak as if she were part of some past mistake? Why did Nathaniel say she wasn't a stranger? Was this all about Clara, his dead wife? Or was it about Elikim? Amma looked down at her daughter, fast asleep, unaware of the storm building around them. She had trusted a stranger. A man with wealth and secrets. And now, she wasn't sure if she'd walked into a miracle or a carefully set trap. Amma couldn't concentrate. Not on the sunlight streaming through the window. Not on the soft giggles of Elikim playing in her crib. Her mind was still trapped in the whispers she heard the night before. That conversation, sharp, loaded, unfinished, now lived rent-free in her every breath. The words echoed in her head. She's not a stranger. You think this will make up for it? Does she even know? What didn't she know? Nathaniel had been distant all day. He'd said he had meetings. But Amma had caught glimpses of him, staring, always staring, as if he wanted to say something, but never did. And when she asked the housekeeper what wing she wasn't allowed in, the woman's polite smile froze into something cautious. The west wing is private, she said carefully. Only Mr. Mensah goes there. Amma waited until the house quieted down. The staff changed shifts. Nathaniel's car rolled out of the front gate. She carried Elikim on her hip and walked as calmly as she could toward the forbidden west wing. No alarms. No locked doors. It was almost too easy. The west wing looked older, less polished, as if frozen in time. Dust danced in the sunbeams. The furniture felt untouched. She passed a room with a piano, a room filled with children's toys, and finally came to a heavy wooden door left slightly open. Inside was a study. Quiet. Lined with tall bookshelves and cabinets with glass doors. Amma stepped inside, her heart thudding. A portrait hung above the desk, Nathaniel and Clara. Together. Happy. In love. The woman looked eerily like Amma. The resemblance was no longer subtle. It was enough to send chills down her spine. She moved to the desk. Its drawers were locked, except one. Inside were medical documents. Hospital forms. Pregnancy records. Her name was on one of them. Amma gasped. Her full name. Amma Ifewan Nkrumah. Signed next to a patient ID she didn't recognize. The form was from a private clinic. 2 years ago. Dated exactly 7 months before Elikim's birth. She kept flipping. A sealed envelope. She opened it. DNA report. Subject A, Elikim Nkrumah, infant. Subject B, Nathaniel Mensah. Result, 99.99% match, biological paternity confirmed. Amma dropped the paper. Her legs gave out, and she sat on the floor, unable to breathe. What is this? She stared at the report, her mind struggling to accept what her eyes already had. Elikim was Nathaniel's daughter? But how? She had never met him before that day in the rain. Never worked for him. Never even been near anyone like him. Was this a lie? A trick? She kept digging. A hospital intake form. From the Biotech Reproductive Research Center, a name she vaguely remembered from her pregnancy. She had gone there once, desperate, thinking it was a free clinic offering maternal supplements. The nurses had been kind. Too kind. They gave her injections she didn't understand, promised help with no real follow-up. She never returned. Was that when it happened? She stared down at Elikim, who now sat on the carpet, giggling at a golden paperweight. Suddenly, it all clicked. Nathaniel's company, Mensah Biotech. His wife's failed pregnancy. The hospital experiment. Her free clinic visit. The eerie way the mansion felt prepared for her. They had taken her embryo. Or fertilized her without consent. And now, Nathaniel knew. He had known before he saw her. Amma's vision blurred. The pain, the confusion, the betrayal, it crushed her chest. She stood up, grabbed the documents, and stormed out of the study with Elikim clutched to her side. Later that evening. The front door opened. Nathaniel entered quietly, unaware. Emma stood in the foyer, shaking, the DNA report clutched in her hand. "You knew," she said, her voice barely holding back rage. Nathaniel stopped cold. His eyes dropped to the paper in her hand. "You knew this whole time," she whispered, tears forming. "You knew she was yours." He stepped forward slowly. "Emma, please, let me explain." "You lied to me," she shouted. "You took my baby's life and twisted it into something I don't even understand." Nathaniel looked broken. "I didn't know at first. Not for sure. I had suspicions, years ago, but when I saw you that day, it confirmed everything. I saw her face in your child. So you brought us here like experiments? Like your replacement family?" "No," he said, quickly. "Emma, I didn't know how to tell you. My company, my board funded unethical fertility trials under the table. I found out too late. They shut it down. But before that, some embryos were implanted without consent. I've been looking for the mothers ever since. Yours was the only child that survived." Emma's world collapsed under her feet. "You stole her," she said, voice trembling. "You stole her before she was even born." And with that, she turned and walked away. Nathaniel didn't stop her. Because for the first time, he didn't know how. Emma hadn't slept all night. She sat on the edge of her bed, eyes red, arms wrapped tightly around Elikim. The documents Nathaniel had tried to hide lay scattered across the floor. Medical forms. DNA results. Hospital reports. Every line confirmed what she had feared, that her body, her pregnancy, and her child had all been manipulated without her consent. She had come to the city looking for safety. Instead, she had unknowingly carried the child of a billionaire. Not through love. Not through any natural bond. But through corporate theft, masked as charity. Her entire world was a lie. Emma looked down at her daughter. Elikim was awake now, staring up at her with innocent, trusting eyes. She touched her mother's cheek gently, and something deep inside Emma shattered. Her baby was not a mistake. She was not a shameful secret. She was not some stolen miracle. She was hers. And now, she had to decide what to do. Emma walked down the hallway with her baby strapped to her back, a bag over her shoulder. Her steps were heavy, but her face was set, determined, resolved. The housekeeper called out gently, "Madam? Are you leaving?" Emma didn't answer. As she reached the front entrance, Nathaniel was already waiting. As if he had known. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes red from sleeplessness. He looked like a man who had lost something he didn't know how to keep. "Where will you go?" he asked softly. "I don't know," Emma replied. "But I'd rather be in the streets with the truth than sleep in a palace built on lies." He stepped forward. "Emma, please. I was wrong. But I didn't plan this. I didn't orchestrate anything. I've been trying to undo what my company did, what we did, to women like you. I've shut down the program. I've fired those responsible. But I didn't know about Elikim until the day I saw you. I swear it." She stared at him, unmoved. Nathaniel tried again. "Let me help. Not because I feel guilty, but because she's mine too. And I want to do right by her. Not as a billionaire. Not as a man who made mistakes. But as a father." Emma's throat tightened. "I don't need a father for her," she said quietly. "She's had me. And that's been enough." Nathaniel lowered his gaze. "I understand," he said. "But before you go, I need you to know something else." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded letter. "It's from Clara. My wife." Emma hesitated. Then took it. Flashback, narrated through Clara's letter. "If you're reading this, Nathaniel, it means the truth has come out. I begged you not to fund that program. But you were too focused on the legacy, too desperate to save our family after the miscarriage. You didn't listen. If a child was born through that chaos, love them. Don't run from it. Don't use them to replace me. Just love them. And if their mother is still alive, help her, not because you owe her, but because that child deserves more than we ever had." Emma's hands trembled as she finished reading. The truth wasn't simple. It wasn't clean. It was filled with pain and mistakes. But somehow, Clara had seen what Nathaniel couldn't, the path to redemption. Emma looked up. "I don't forgive you," she said. Nathaniel nodded, silent. Not yet, she added. But if you truly want to be in Elikam's life, then prove it. Not with money. Not with gifts. Show up. Stay. Be better. His voice cracked. I will. Amma exhaled. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she wasn't walking into it alone. She had her daughter. She had the truth. And maybe, just maybe, she had a new beginning. 6 months later. The camera pans across a quiet park. Children play. The sun shines. Amma, dressed simply but beautifully, sits on a bench watching Elikam waddle toward the flowers. A few feet away, Nathaniel stands beside a swing, waiting with a soft smile. He doesn't try to take control. He doesn't overstep. He's just there. Amma watches him carefully, then nods. A quiet peace passes between them. Not the end. But a new chapter.